control your emotions, or someone else will. Most people think emotional control means being calm. It doesn't. It means being unmovable. If someone can spike your emotions, they can steer your behavior. If they can steer your behavior, they can control outcomes in your life without ever touching you. That's the part no one teaches you. You don't lose power when you're yelled at. You lose power when your internal state starts reacting on command. This episode isn't about suppressing emotions. It's not about pretending you don't feel things. And it's definitely not about becoming cold. It's about this single truth. If you don't control your emotional responses, someone else will, and they won't ask permission. The real problem: you were taught something dangerous. You were taught that emotions are something to express, process, explain, or honor. But you were never taught how to contain them. So now, people provoke you and you explain. They push and you defend. They react and you escalate. They withdraw and you chase. And every one of those reactions feels justified, reasonable, human. But here's the cost no one mentions. Every emotional reaction you don't choose becomes leverage for someone else. Not because they're evil, but because systems exploit what moves. Why emotional control is power, not personality. Emotionally controlled people aren't special. They aren't numb. They aren't built differently. They've just trained one thing you haven't yet: delay between stimulus and response. That delay is everything. When someone says something triggering and you fire back immediately, explain yourself, get defensive, justify your position, try to calm them down. Your nervous system is announcing, "This works on me." And systems repeat what works. People who remain composed aren't calmer by nature. They're less available to manipulation. Not because they don't care, but because they don't leak control through reaction. Every reaction is data, and people learn fast. Human beings are pattern recognition machines. If every time they criticize, you explain. They withdraw, you chase. They escalate, you collapse. They push, you bend. They learn exactly how to move you. Not consciously, not maliciously, but efficiently. You teach people how to treat you by what moves your internal state. And the more reactive you are, the more training data you give away. This is why be yourself backfires. You were told, just be yourself. Express how you feel. Don't bottle things up. But no one explained context. Unfiltered emotional expression in unsafe systems doesn't create intimacy. It creates predictability. And predictability without authority equals vulnerability. Control doesn't mean silence forever. It means choice. You decide when to speak, what to reveal, what to withhold, when engagement is worth the cost. That's not repression. That's regulation. The difference between feeling and leading. Here's the line most people never learned to draw. You can feel everything without letting everything move you. Emotionally immature people confuse intensity with truth. Emotionally disciplined people understand intensity passes, consequences don't. Just because you feel the urge to react doesn't mean the reaction deserves daylight. Leadership, internally and externally, begins when urges stop being commands. Why people try to provoke you. This is uncomfortable but important. Some people don't want solutions. They want movement inside you. Because movement inside you regulates them, distracts them, validates them, centers them. Your reaction becomes their relief. So they poke, they test, they escalate, they withdraw, not to resolve, but to see if you'll move. The moment you stop moving on cue, the dynamic changes. Emotional control is not suppression. Let's clear this up. Control does not mean ignoring emotions, pretending you're fine, avoiding difficult conversations, becoming detached or robotic. Control means feeling the spike, Staying physically present, not outsourcing action to the feeling, letting the wave pass without obeying it. Suppression buries emotion. Regulation contains it. Big difference. Why explaining is usually a loss. Most explanations don't come from clarity. They come from discomfort. You explain because silence feels dangerous. Misunderstanding feels threatening. Tension feels intolerable. But every explanation given under pressure weakens authority because it teaches your nervous system, I need agreement to stay regulated. And that's the opposite of control. Strong people explain by choice, not compulsion. The nervous system, truth. Your nervous system has one job: reduce perceived threat. So when emotions spike, it pushes for immediate action, emotional discharge, resolution now, relief at any cost. But relief isn't the same as safety. Every time you react to calm yourself, you reinforce the loop. Reactivity equals survival. And the system repeats what it believes keeps it alive. How people lose themselves without noticing. This is subtle. You don't lose yourself through one big mistake. You lose yourself through micro reactions. Tiny moments where you didn't want to respond but did, you felt pulled and followed, you adjusted your behavior to manage someone else's emotions. You abandoned stillness to restore harmony. Over time, identity erodes. Not loudly, quietly, until you feel anxious without knowing why. Self-discipline is emotional discipline. Most people think discipline is about habits. It's not. Discipline is what you do when emotions spike. Can you stay when you want to flee? Be silent when you want to explain? Hold posture when you want to appease? Maintain direction when discomfort shows up? If not, productivity systems won't save you because emotions run the show. Being unbothered is trained, not decided. You don't wake up unbothered. You practice restraint every time you pause instead of reacting. Breathe instead of speaking. Let discomfort exist without fixing it. You teach your system, I can survive this without moving. That's how calm becomes durable. Not through affirmations, through evidence. The power of not matching energy. Most people mirror. Someone raises their voice, you tense. Someone withdraws, you pursue. Someone pushes, you push back. Matching energy feels fair, but it surrenders control. When you don't match, you lead, not aggressively, not performatively, but through steadiness. And steadiness destabilizes manipulation. Why silence is so uncomfortable. Silence removes feedback, and without feedback, the nervous system panics. But silence is where power consolidates. When you don't immediately respond, you reclaim time. You interrupt the loop. You let others sit with their emotion. That's not punishment. That's boundaries. Emotional intelligence redefined. Emotional intelligence isn't saying everything you feel. Naming emotions constantly, processing out loud, and it's knowing which emotions need space, which need structure, which don't deserve action. Control is discernment, not expression. Why regret and reactivity are connected. Regret comes from replaying moments where emotions took over. You didn't choose poorly, you reacted poorly. Presence cures regret because presence restores choice, and choice restores dignity. Boredom, stimulation, and emotional leaks. When life lacks challenge, the nervous system seeks stimulation. Drama, conflict, overthinking, reactivity. Emotional chaos becomes entertainment. Challenge restores containment. The practice. This is where change happens. Here's the rule. Feel everything, obey very little. When emotion spikes, stay physically still. Slow the breath. Delay the response. Ask, what happens if I don't move? Most of the time, nothing breaks. And your system learns safety without reaction. What changes when you master this? When you stop reacting, people escalate less. Manipulation fails. Conversations shorten. Respect increases. Anxiety drops. Not because others changed, but because you did. This is not about winning. This isn't dominance, it's sovereignty. You're not trying to control others. You're removing their access to your internal state. That's peace with backbone. The core truth: you don't need better boundaries. You need better emotional containment. You don't need more insight. You need practice under pressure. And you don't need to eliminate emotions. You need to lead them. Because if you don't, someone else will, and they won't care, whether it costs you your time, your clarity, or your life. Thank you for watching. This is MindStickz.